The first vestiges of a global trade war have shaken financial markets as battles flare on several fronts in reaction to the planned imposition of import tariffs by the new U.S. administration. 25% duties will take effect tomorrow on Mexican and Canadian goods, and there will be a 10% blanket tariff on Chinese imports, barring any last-minute deals. Tit-for-tat moves are on the horizon. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has unveiled a 25% counter-tariff, while Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum pledged to react in kind. China, meanwhile, says it will take its case against the U.S. to the World Trade Organization, although Beijing stopped short of explicitly threatening counter-tariffs. Europe also caught in President Trump's crosshairs. He's warning that tariffs will, quote, definitely happen. The EU foreign policy chief said there are, quote, no winners in trade wars. President Trump's tariffs unleashing a wave of anxiety in global markets, with bourses from Japan to Australia swimming in a sea of red, while stocks in Hong Kong finishing flat. Mainland Chinese markets only resumed trading on Wednesday. Meantime, the Pan-European Stock 600 index currently down at 1.31%, and the US S&P 500 futures also down in the red 0.5%. Currencies are seeing big moves as well as money flocks to the US dollar. And for more, Nick Harper joins us live from Washington, D.C. Nick, President Trump set to hold meetings with leaders from Canada and Mexico, but he said he's likely to stand firm on tariffs. Can we expect anything substantial to come out from these talks?
That's right, Wei Su. Those phone calls expected to take place in the coming hours with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mexican leadership. It's unclear if Claudia Sheinbaum will be on the call. The Mexican president is due to announce her own sanctions against the United States later on today. But Donald Trump seems to be suggesting it will take something significant for him not to go ahead with the tariffs, which are due to go into place on Tuesday. So it seems unlikely that these phone calls will sort everything out. He has said that essentially he needs a number of things from both Canada and Mexico. Part of that is sorting out what he sees as a trade imbalance between the three countries. He said that they have to balance out their trade. He said that that is the number one thing that must be done. But also in the background is stopping certain things, and that's the flow of fentanyl and illegal immigrants into the United States. Donald Trump says that Canada and Mexico has their part to play in order to stop all of that. Of course, the worry is that even with these phone calls taking place, we could see more tariffs coming in. There is a possibility that Donald Trump may want to respond in kind to Justin Trudeau's promise to place 25% tariffs on more than $100 billion worth of US goods. And if there are tariffs from Mexico, Donald Trump may retaliate as well. So we may see a US retaliation to the retaliatory tariffs. Those phone calls later on. We'll wait and see what comes out of them, though, Wei Su.
Nick, economists of every stripe and colour in the last few weeks we have spoken to, all warning that tariffs like these, including counter-tariffs, are likely to lead to higher prices for the average American. President Trump forestalling, preempting that, warning Americans of, quote, short-term pain. How have Americans reacted so far to this threat of looming tariffs?
Yeah, higher costs and potentially higher problems for the president. That warning when he spoke to reporters late on Sunday night, that we will have some short-term, a little bit of pain, he said. But he also said that people understand. What is unclear is if they will. It will take, on some products, perhaps days, on other products, perhaps weeks for it to become clear the exact effects on US consumers. Companies will need to decide whether they're going to absorb the extra costs. That may lead to a cut on hiring. It'll certainly lead to a reduction on their profits. But if they pass on costs to US consumers, that will simply push up the cost of living. It'll push up inflation, things that Donald Trump said he was going to handle when he became president. But things like tomatoes, avocados, electronics, phones from China, all of those will be going up in prices in the coming weeks. And all of those Americans, 77 million who voted for Donald Trump, they will be feeling the effects as well. And we'll have to wait and see whether they forgive the president for what he's calling short-term pain, or whether they decide that they've got buyer's remorse as they see the cost of living rise further under the new US president.
Oh, thanks, Nick Harper there reporting live from Washington, D.C. China reportedly preparing to hold talks with the US to stave off further levies by the Trump administration. CNA's Wong in Hong Kong has more on Beijing's remarks on these new tariffs.
Well, China was very quick in issuing its statement as Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson reiterated its consistent line that says that trade or tariff wars will benefit no one. China also took pains to remind the US that the additional tariffs is actually a violation of WTO rules, and therefore reports have shown that China intends to file a complaint with the WTO on this. China is also of the view that this additional tariffs that will be laid on China will actually not resolve any of the domestic US problems. That's because President Donald Trump had said previously that he's concerned about the illegal immigration as well as the drug activities, drug trafficking back in the US, and therefore he's imposing all these new actions. And China was very quick to say that, in fact, Beijing has been one of the top countries in the world in terms of taking tough actions against drugs, and also they've been collaborating with the US in trying to combat the drug activities. So all these new measures are just going to counterproductive, to be honest with you, and also this will affect the cooperation going forward. In fact, China called on the US to correct its wrongdoings, in its words, and also to focus rather on coming up and strengthening the bilateral ties between the two. Remember here that China is exporting a wide variety of goods to the US, such as particularly consumer electronics, television, mobile phones, as well as laptops. So all of these are going to be increasingly impacted going forward. And remember here that US already has tariffs on China. For example, 100% tariffs on electric vehicles from China, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum from China as well. So all of these, they say, will only end up hurting the Americans more than anything.